we are privileged to have with us Joshua, a meteorologist stationed at the Central Analysis and Forecasting Unit. Thank you very much, Joshua. Today we shall spotlight the rains experienced over the weekend. Let's dive right into it. So Joshua, can you tell us more about your unit?
All right, thank you. So this is the Central Analysis and Forecast Office. Here we receive information from across the country, from our rain gauge stations and automatic weather stations scattered across Ghana. We analyze this information and use numerical weather prediction models to make prognosis into the future, analyze them, and come up with forecasts for the general public. So this is a public weather forecast office. We have other forecast offices, some at the Kotoka International Airport, specifically for aviation and aeronautical information. But for us here, we only do public weather forecast.
Okay, thank you very much. So over the weekend, we experienced continuous rainfall over the country. Can you share with us what accounted for the rainfall?
So this was typically the kind of weather that we see in August. Usually we get lots of moisture supplied from the ocean coming into southern Ghana. But around the same time, we also get very high atmospheric pressure. This suppresses some of the cloud formation and eventual precipitation that comes with it. So during August, we say this is the coldest month in the year because almost the entire sky is covered by clouds. But it does not really produce lots of rainfall. But there are variations that happen almost every year. So in some years you have very high pressures, other years you get very low pressures. We are seeing lower pressures this year, and so we're getting higher intensity of rainfall this year than what we experienced in the past few years.
Thank you very much. There are reports of rainfall across other parts of the country. Can you confirm whether the rains were over the entire country or only in Accra?
So basically they were separate events. For us in the coastal parts up to the forest areas, they were typically low clouds that formed because of the constant supply of moisture into southern Ghana. Due to this, and then coupled with other favorable conditions like lower pressures and the movement of the winds, we got lots of cloud formation and lots of rainfall. But they continued for the whole day because it wasn't a storm that was just going to track and then leave in a few minutes. This was clouds that were stationed at the area, very favorable, and so they continued to pour for most parts of the day. The duration was quite high, but the amount was not too high throughout the day. So we had some slight rain, other times we'd have some moderate rainfall, but it lasted for almost the whole day, and that accounted for the accumulation of rainfall that we had in southern Ghana. But for northern Ghana, there was a rainstorm, a moving storm that tracked over those areas, and so they had some thunder, lightning flashes, and some windy conditions accompanying the rains that they experienced there. So we had rains across the country, but the type of rain was different from the northern portions than what we experienced in the southern parts of the country.
Okay. Compared to last year's rainfall patterns, are the rains around this time of the year normal or unusual? What is the difference this time around?
So like I said earlier, we experienced lots of cloudiness in August, and this comes with some slight rain or drizzle around this time. And it extends into the early parts of September before we go into the minor rainfall season. We are still seeing similar conditions, but there are variations in each year's weather activities or conditions that we see. Last year, it was a bit drier than what we are seeing now. And so we are seeing a lot more intense rainfall this year than what we experienced in last year around August into the start of September. And actually, based on the minor rainfall seasonal forecast, we're expecting the minor rainfall season to start in the 4th week of August into the 3rd week of September. So we can say that we are in the transition from the little dry period that we had in August into the minor rainfall season for southern Ghana.
Okay. Did the GMet weekend outlook capture the rains, and were there any weather warnings issued?
Yes, so on Friday around 5 p.m. the weekend outlook was sent out, and we're expecting rains for most parts of the country on Saturday and Sunday. So we're actually anticipating a very wet weekend for the entire country. So it was fully captured in our weekend outlook. Also, when the event started, we saw some of the activities forming, especially for the northern portions of Ghana, which was more of a moving storm. So we wrote weather warnings to cover these moving storms that affected the northern parts of the country, because the devastation was expected to be higher for those areas than the southern portions of Ghana. But these were all captured in our forecast bulletins that were sent out from the Friday evening to Sunday evening.
Can you tell us the magnitude of rain recorded?
Well, so for coastal Ghana, we had very long accumulation of rainfall. From Saturday to Sunday, you can say that it was just a rainy weekend for coastal and the forest areas in Ghana. But for the accumulation of rainfall, we had a little below 50 millimeters for most parts of the country. St. Mary's in Accra had about 46.4 millimeters of rainfall. The Accra Technical Training College also had about 37.2 millimeters. We had 33.7 millimeters for Accra Girls. Waja also had about 30.9 millimeters. All the other stations had below 30 millimeters of rainfall. So we had rains almost everywhere, but majority of them had below 20 millimeters, and the highest was just a little below 50 millimeters. The other parts of the country also had a significant amount of rainfall. 68.5 millimeters for Navrongo in the Upper East region, about 67.2 Nkoko in the Eastern region. We also had Akwitia giving us about 60.7 millimeters of rainfall, 49.8 for Prang, that's around the transition areas going into the northern portions, and then in Sawam giving us about 44.5 millimeters, 41.9 for Bui in the northern Savannah region. So you can see that the intensity was higher for areas in the northern parts to the middle portions of the country. But for coastal Ghana, we only have this cause of alarm because it rained for a longer period of time.
Thank you very much. So what advice can you give to the public, and what should we expect?
So we are gradually entering into the minor rainfall season for southern Ghana. And so we'll start experiencing the moderate to heavy rainfall. We'll also be seeing more sunshine around this time. And that means that we'll be getting some different kind of rainfall. That is the one that is accompanied by windy and then thundery conditions. So it will not be like what we experienced in the month of August and the start of September. This time around, we'll be seeing some thunder, lightning, and then windy conditions accompanying the rainfall that we'll be seeing around this time. And this we'll see somewhere around November going into December before we go into the dry season proper for the country. But for the week ahead, we are anticipating wet conditions for the start of the week. So from now till the close of Tuesday, we'll be getting rains occurring within the eastern Volta regions. That's where we expect the higher magnitude of rainfall to be experienced. Areas in the northeast, northern regions will also get some moderate to heavy rainfall for the start of the week. For the coastal sector and the western portions of the country, areas will generally be slight to moderate rainfall. So the magnitude will be less compared to the eastern Uti, Volta, and northern regions. For midweek, we'll see more brighter conditions, more bright conditions for midweek. Sunny periods will be experienced from the northern portions to the southern parts of the country. So if you want to dry some things, the weekend will be a bit good for you. Over the weekend, we'll have higher distribution of rainfall coming into the country. So from the northern portions to the coastal sector, we'll get scattered distribution of rainfall across, but then the northern parts will have the rains accompanied by thunder and lightning, whilst for us in southern Ghana will mostly be the ones without thunder and lightning, but occasionally we'll get some thunder rumblings in the southern parts of the country as well.
Thank you very much, Joshua. It was a privilege having you. This has been Let's Talk Weather with the Ghana Meteorological Agency.